Because imagine if you guys didn't. We wouldn't be even doing this right now.
Yeah, no, this wouldn't exist. I'd still be the chef at, one restaurant.
You wouldn't have managed to exist in the same plane as Padma, for Christ's sakes.
Exactly. So that's super interesting.
So anyways, I had to kill my ego tour.
Yeah.
So we finished it. When I finished, I didn't end, or so when I moved in to do retail, I wanted something a little bit different. And if you think about it, if you go back and read anything about Earl's Grocery, my name was rarely mentioned. Mm-hmm. You rarely saw me. Yeah. Dude, I just stayed in the back and started working on myself.
Was that by design, or did that just happen to be the way it was portrayed?
I mean, that's Bonnie and Trish anyway. So like they've always, like, didn't matter who their chef was, they rarely talked about their chef. And that's their right and opportunity, right?
Sure.
But because I knew that's sort of how they operated, I knew that they wouldn't just be riding on my name, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I knew that I needed to extract myself from myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what any of that looked like or what it meant. And I don't even know if I knew how to verbalize it at that point, but I knew it's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I knew being away from people, hiding in the back.
Yeah, just doing your thing, having a list that needed to be checked off and having it done.
Yeah, some structure.
Yeah.
And then I started doing pottery, and that's when everything went.
So that was good for you then. Earl's was good. That was like a therapeutic kind of.
All the jobs that I had, even like Nan and Byron's was a necessity. Mm-hmm. Like, and it wasn't on purpose by any stretch of the imagination, but the universe always has an amazing way of giving you exactly what you need. Right. And I needed it.
Yeah.
I needed to be faced with a lot of things. I needed to see where my deficits were and where my strengths were and figure out what it is that I wanted to go and where I wanted to head next. Because even at that point, you got to figure I was in my 40s by then.
Yep.
So, the writing's on the wall at some point.
Yep.
So what's your plan, bro? Because, you already said you're not going to open another restaurant on your own money, and I really didn't want to get into partnership with anybody else.
Right.
So
is that because of the partnerships that you've been in previously, or you were just at that stage of your career and stuff? You're kind of like,
I'd asked a lot for my family.
Yeah.
And my wife, God bless her, she said I can't really talk about her, which I generally do, which is always funny because people are like, you don't talk about your wife. My wife and kids have like social media. They have they don't really have a footprint.
Yeah.
They're very private people. Mm-hmm. The exact opposite of me, although people are always like, oh, they think they know everything about me. I give what I want to give. Right. There's a lot that I don't, right? Because it's not your business. Right. Like, I'll share the things that I think are going to be important or helpful or promote something I want to promote.
Mm-hmm. Or stir the shit pot if that's...
that.
or
that. Yeah, I still will always have that problem because goddamn, it's fun getting people riled up. But my wife was like, she said, don't talk about me a lot. But the thing is like, she is not one who deals with uncertainty well, right?
Yeah.
So owning a restaurant that was underfunded, undercapitalized, and was put mostly on my credit cards was a lot to ask for because she pays bills like it's a religion.
Right.
Right.
Like on the day at 2:00 on the 4th of every month, I am.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'm not like that either. I think I'm like you in a way that I'm just kind of like, I just kind of get it done.
Yeah, I'll pay when I got to. Yeah.
Like miraculously it gets done. I'm like, wow, that was amazing.
It's kind of like having a whole calendar of pasta and I just throw it up. I was like, oh, there it is. I'm done.
Exactly.
But the funny thing is like anybody who knows my social media presence, like, it's like I went out and did a run today, right? It's like I could have not posted about it, but I posted about it.
Yeah.
My wife, on the other hand, does things all day long that like any other person would be like, here's me doing this thing. Right. Aren't I amazing?
Yeah.
Not her.
Yeah.
And she just like, oh, dude, she just fucking does it. Yeah. I'm like,
because that's what you do.
How do you do that? I don't know. Yeah. Well, the thing is like her parents all the way through her life were always together. There's all these things that she didn't have that I did.
Yep.
Probably some of the difference, and then some of us are just predetermined and predestined to be shit stirring, like, assholes. And that's me, a little bit you. But, nah, dude, it's just like after doing all that, like I don't mind partnering. Like, I don't have to be the number one person in the room because, it's probably not a huge surprise to anybody, but like I'm a card carrying anarchist. I have been my entire life, and it doesn't mean I believe in chaos. It's just power structures are something that we just agree to, and the best ones are the ones that are something that this is what we need, this is what we got, and we work with it. Like I don't have to be the number one person in the room to be productive, to be successful, and to be a part of something that's greater than myself. And any kitchen is like that.
I think that good kitchens, like I think most things, if like my kitchens have always been about the team, right? Even though I've always been like kind of the focal point, and that's, I think a lot of it is because the way our group is structured, and people respond well to that. People love chefs, right? That's a marketing. It was a marketing strategy.
Well, the buck has to stop someplace,
right? And but my success is not about how great I've been as a chef. I mean, a lot of the chefs that work for me now are better, than I was, or at least can get there. Like
or bring something that you don't.
Right. A lot of them bring stuff that I don't.
Well,
right?
that's great leadership.
A lot more creative. They're they're tweaking with new techniques that are like,
Listen, if you were a point guard and became a coach and you had a whole team of point guards, you're fucking losing.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to have people play positions.
Right. And I think what's making us strive now is that young leadership, right, that worked under me as line cooks or sous chefs are now in positions of like executive leadership, right?
Yeah.
Like Adam is our vice president of culinary. He's basically the me, right?
Yeah.
And the place is like crushing. And we work together in tandem, which is great because I bring, a different type of leadership than he does and a little more experience. But he is an excellent leader in his own right and a really good teacher, and a great operator. Like he's a very good operator, which I was not. I was a talented person. I could run shifts. Like my leadership skills, I think, are excellent. But my management skills, like managing time, managing that kind of stuff, was not always great.
Okay, yeah.
Like I was good at it, but not great.
Right.
He's very good at it, and so I think that's so important to realize. And young chefs out there need to know, like, dude, get over yourself. Like, get over your fucking ego. It ain't about you.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's about the fucking people eating for you because they're the ones that pay the bills.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is like I think people kind of forgot why they got into cooking in the first place, what they really liked. And that's the thing about it, because I see it day in and day out. I mean, I've caught myself doing it too, where I get pissed off over something because somebody wanted something. Like, and it speaks to sort of like what you were just talking about as far as management styles, right? The one thing you've always been really good about, and why I respect you from the inside the kitchen, is you're clear on your expectations. And most of the chefs that I respect and admire are the same. I do the same thing in my own kitchens. Like I'm even at my most wildest, most like pirate ship kitchen, like I always had expectations for people because like as long as we know where the fence line is, run around the yard all you want.
Get in there and hit someone.
Yeah. But otherwise, like you can't go over here.
Yeah.
Like that's, Johnson's apple orchard's out of bounds. Can't go in there. And the thing is just giving expectations, I think is probably singularly the greatest thing a chef can do for any kitchen. Yeah. You don't have to be the best cook. It helps if you are.
Yep.
Right. But ultimately, like, I'm in this position because I'm in this position, and if you can outcook me.
Right. So let's talk about that. Why did you get into this? What's so important about that? Because I think that, and I don't know if this is true for everybody, it's true for me, I lost sight of that at some point along my trajectory, right?
I think I've lost it a couple times.
Yeah, I probably have too.
Some of them more major than others, but
right. Would you consider that burnout when that happens? Is that a burnout?
I mean, yeah, I guess at times, but dude, everything's cyclical anyways, one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
It's like when I was writing, it was like sometimes it would all just come and it'd be like I'd look at it and go like, I can't believe I did that, and then other times where you're forcing it out, and so I feel like career wise you can kind of do that too. Like as a cook, you do forget. I think sometimes it's because there's all these outside pressures and expectations, and other times
life is happening to you while you're trying to.
I mean, it's a multitude of things, and sometimes too, I think those burnouts you got. I mean, when those moments pop, I think you should pay attention to them because sometimes you really do need to make a seismic shift. Other times you just need to sort of clean house, your own house a little bit, take a look around, tidy up your station, and go, what the fuck do I need to do right now?
I love that fucking analogy.
Because because you know what happens when your station gets fucking messy. Your mind's cluttered as fuck, and if your mind's cluttered, you suck.
Yeah, you are going down.
Remember that, Raven?
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I got into cooking. I was in college at the time. I'd already done the business ownership thing. I was partnered in a skateboard shop, and because I got out of high school, dropped out, took my GED, bridged over into college, and did one semester. I was like, I'm going to be an architect. Or no, I take that back. That was actually my first semester. First semester in, I was going to go in for graphic arts because I was taking some of that during high school. And I went over to the local community college, started to get things going, and went and talked to the department head and got asking some questions and realized that was already a blown out market. Like, there was going to be no way to be a standout. And what I saw was like, that was just like, I knew then that I did not want to work in an office.
Yeah.
Like I knew that I needed something larger than that to make me happy. Right. It's like skateboarding gave me punk rock gave me Henry gave me Buddhism gave me fucking meditation, and meditation brought me all the way back around to running, which is what I was doing before skateboarding. Right. So it was sort of the same thing, like trying to figure out what to do for school. And I realized once I got there and I took a look at it, I'm like, dude, I didn't even like high school right now, and I don't see how this is going to be different. So I was like, I went and talked to Larry and was like, well, let's do more with the skate shop. So I put in my time, put in some money, and we pushed forward, opened up a second location, was doing that. And then when I blew my knee out, I had to reconsider, I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, well, what are you going to do now, Mr. Blown Out Knee? Because like, things were looking pretty good on the skateboarding. And I was like, I got a shop and it looks like I might have a solid sponsorship going on. Like, this might work. And then,
yeah.
But if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have met my wife and we wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
But so I started, long story, very, very short. I sort of worked through a few things and ended up in philosophy. Mm-hmm. And I was looking for something. I was looking for truth, basically. It's like I did this one thing and I was doing not graphic design, but civil engineering, because they didn't have architecture, but at least I could get in on the ground level. Like first year, like AutoCAD got released, like I was there for it. So, and I took a psychology class and I was like, oh, wait, this makes sense. Like what's going on up here? Of course, we were all fucked up, right? I got a family of psychologists, for Christ's sakes, on one side. So I did that, and it's like things just kind of rolled until I fell into philosophy, and I'm like, this is exactly what I'm looking for, because I really want to I wanted to get past things down into the truth of something, whatever it was. So I figured I would do this. And of course, the further along you get in academia, the less the concern about the actual truth is, and the more encampments you start getting on all this crap. And it got to a point, then I was doing other jobs, and I went back into doing some cooking, and I had this realization that nobody ever sent back a steak because it wasn't a steak. In philosophy, there's all that's not truth. That's not this. Like they could there's all these like tricks of logic and using sophisticated argumentation to twist things around, and which we all just saw happen live and in person for the last 8 years on social media, for God's sakes.
Yep.
Which is why it's perfect for a guy like me, but also poison. But anyways, that's how I got back into. That's how I really got into cooking. And during that time, like I would cook for my wife and stuff, because that was the only way I could really communicate effectively.
Yep.
It's like I'd overthink things and fumble it and everything else like that. But goddamn it, I'd cook you a plate of food and you knew what I meant. I cared about you and I wanted you to be well.
I'm glad you said that, to communicate with people.
That's what we do.
But I don't know that everybody sees it that way, right? Like I do.
Right.
I do 100%. I relate to that, what you just said, because that's why I do what I do. Mm-hmm. And I think, and this is going to lead into what do you do next, right? Because, I did that. I cooked my fucking ass off for years and years and years to be the best, to, put out the best plate of food, to, take care of people or nurture people, things like that. But then as you move through the business, right, doing different things and move up or wherever or out, the young guns kind of come in, because that's a young person's.
It's a young person's game.
Yeah, like running a kitchen is a young person's game. Like old people can't do that. You know what I'm saying?
We can, but we don't want to.
Yeah, it hurts a lot. Yeah, it hurts a lot, and you can't recover. And and also when you're not feeling it, you're not putting out your best work.
No,
it's so. To me, cooking is so personal. Like it takes so much energy and focus and attention to do it well.
Yeah.
That if you're like fucked up or hurt or whatever, like you're not putting out your best game, and that's not fair to your guests.
No,
right?
not at all.
They're coming there for an expectation, for an experience, and they're getting a piece of that, right? So what next, right? If you've spent your career cooking to communicate with people and to explore the world around you, that's something else that I do now. For me, it's about exploration. Right?
Yeah.
It's about, okay, well, I don't want to be in the kitchen grinding every night because I can't. I mean, I could, but like you said, I don't want to.
Yeah, no.
But now I can explore the world around me through food, which is fun. How do you transition that world, to what's next? Do you have any ideas about that? Have you been thinking about it?
Well, I mean, I guess it's sort of how I ended up, it's how I ended up at Southminster, right?
Okay.
I mean, with that, ultimately, to me, I mean, first of all, I needed to be in service to somebody besides myself. That part was clear. And well, I mean, I had been in nothing but service to myself, and we get talking about the drinking thing.
Okay.
And that's sort of the first realization when you go sober, right? And I mean, I did it loud. I was very upfront, very quick, and I was also very honest about the whole thing, because I mean, it didn't stick until I said I gave myself permission to drink. The minute I did it, the actual thought of drinking again it disappeared. It was a vapor.
So let's explore this for a minute, and then we'll roll into what's next, because I think that's a good progression. The drinking thing for you, what was the thing? So what was the issue?
Right.
And then like, how did it come to a head, and why did you stop?
Well, I mean, my identity got wrapped up into it more than anything else, right? By my own design, I created this nice little cage, right? Yeah. It's like, this sort of bad boy image. I'll drink you, like PBR spokesman. If they had ambassadors back then, they would have got, I would have been fucking like, that would have been me, like all the swag. But the thing is like, it got wrapped up into it, and you kind of buy into it. And on top of it, I mean, I was shuffling a lot of trauma and a lot of problems and a lot of things that I didn't deal with. And I think the problem is sometimes when you're told you're smart at a young age, you automatically assume that you know everything. And I saw it a lot as this country really fractured over the last 7 years, because there's guys that I went to school with that were also told that they were smart. Now, I can't speak for women on this one, and I don't know if this falls into like certain gender expectations and all this other stuff. And I'm not qualified to speak on that. It's just observation. So this is completely anecdotal. But I noticed it, that all these guys that were told them that they were smart were very, very poor at actual self criticism. Like, they were not critical of themselves in ways that they should be, but were capable of, as shown by looking outwards. But inwards, they didn't see it because they're smart enough to know better, right? They never actually had to apply critical thinking and levels the way that some people, like my wife, for instance, who was never told that she's smart. I think she's brilliant. She applies critical thinking in ways that, like, in such a simple manner on such basic things that, of course, like, she doesn't have to look for validation, right?
Right.
But because shit was so jumbled, so that's, and drinking sort of helped, like, contain all this down, because it became a personality that people could identify with. It relieved a lot of anxiety. And on top of it, I had there was nobody in my childhood life, my parent-wise, that ever gave me any way, like, that's all that I saw. Like, drinking was what you did. My mother was a tremendous alcoholic. I mean, I don't know that I don't think she ever quit drinking until up until she died. Like, I don't recall her ever not drinking. Right. My father was not quite the same alcoholic as her. And I don't even know that I don't know that I would actually call him one, but he definitely had a drinking problem. Right. He quit, just stopped one day, just kind of shrugged it off and went on his way. Never made a big to-do about it. Occasionally have it here and there, but for the most part, he got to that point and he's like, I'm done, right? Sort of like when I quit smoking, I'm finished. That was the end of it.
Yep.
So, as I realized, and I mean, it's documented the whole, like, when I quit drinking story, so I don't want to rehash that too much, but it was like one of these situations where I realized that my intensity level went down immediately, because drinking means I'm relaxing, right? So immediately my intensity level went down. So like when I was doing some work on the house, I'm like, I'm going to wait till I'm done. And then I started thinking about other stuff. And then I started like, I'm going to give it time. I'm going to do this other thing. And then I was like, all right, well, order fire is going to ramp back up. Once we get going, then I'll be like, I'll go back to like allowing myself to have a drink. And as soon as I said that, like, I didn't give a fuck about drinking for the next 4 or 5 years. Like, it didn't stick. And there was a lot of, like, I did a lot of good work with working through sobriety and all these things and talking about it. But as I kept going, I realized 2 things. Number one, like, calling me an alcoholic didn't feel right. Like, I don't think that I said it a lot, because it didn't, like, when I said it, I'm like, that doesn't feel the relief that I feel like I should have. Like, I don't feel that really gets to the heart of the matter. And I also realized that my sobriety was doing the same thing that my drinking was doing. It was my identity. And I'm not good with being I want to create my identity.
Right.
I don't want it to be created for me. And I'd already done that once before where I created an identity that boxed me in, right?
Right.
So I really started thinking about some stuff, and I was out for a walk with my wife, and I got talking about this reoccurring dream. Well, not even a dream. It was an actual memory that I had of my mother when I was a child. My sister and I come running out of a house. We were living in Florida. My stepfather was brutally abusing her, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't. Now, maybe my voice was hoarse at that time. I don't really know, right? Your memories do weird things.
Yeah.
And it's not like I had forgotten about that, but with everything that was working on, there was something about telling my wife this story. I never told anybody that part, and it's not immensely powerful and not the most profound thing I've ever told anybody or said in public. But I realized that there was such a kernel of things because there was this sense of hopelessness, no matter how hard I yelled, that I couldn't get at, right? And all the other parts of what I experienced as a child and the trauma that I never looked at it as trauma. My wife, my mother and I would always go like, oh, well, hey, I wouldn't change anything. Well, because you can't. Right.
Yeah.
And that's such an enabling thing that we do to ourselves that comfort the moment but doesn't fix the issue. And I was doing a lot of that throughout everything that I did. And like me telling my wife this, again, for no big reason, started to unspool a lot of things. And I recognized that drinking was a problem, but it wasn't my problem. And as my whole thing was about this salvage, getting through myself and salvaging what was left and finding things. It wasn't recovery; it was salvage because you don't get it all back, right?
Right.
Like the damage that I did to my kids just by being a shithead.
Yeah.
Like I can't go back and fix it. Right. All I can do is recover what I got and give them what I have. Same thing. The damage I did to my marriage. I can't do shit about that. I can apologize, move forward, and show this is where we're at. I've got a very strong marriage. Did before I fucked it up, and I feel like we're back there now. Is it perfect? Fuck no. We're adults that can't stand each other 90% of the time. Live with somebody for 30 years, right? It's gonna be like that, especially me. So I got to a point. We're almost on a year now. I went to New York to pick up my son. He had moved to Bed-Stuy in the middle of the pandemic, like the worst time to go to New York. He moves up there, does a year. I go and pick him up. We go to see my father, which is a whole other ball of wax to unspool. You're not my therapist, and I'm not here for it. But it was as sometimes you go in your head as a runner, you think something's going to be really bad, and you get out there and you do it, and it's not, right? Like looking down, like this day's going to suck 14 hours, and you get done with it. It's not that bad.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be like that. And I explained to my son, I'm like, hey, it might get a little weird. It's kind of Archie Bunker, and he'll say this one thing, but then he'll say this other thing and it contradicts it. But unfortunately, this other thing has a lot of hard R's. And you're like, oh. And my son was allergic to cats, so we had to go get a hotel. We didn't have to stay with my dad, so that was nice. We got a reprieve.
A little break.
Yeah. And then he was like, I want to go to Boston. And I'm giving him every reason why I can't go to Boston. It's like, I got all your stuff in my car. I got a huge race on Friday. Like, I'm supposed to be home training. And what am I doing? Of course we'll fucking go to Boston. I booked a fucking hotel room in Cambridge, and we left the next day.
Nice.
And we went out to, my father gave me some, as dads will do. He's like, take your, go get something to eat. So, we're walking around, and we go to Legal Seafood. Yep. Solid tourist joint.
Yeah.
And Lucas, my son, by the way, whose baby food that I made as a child and all these things, is the exact not child any chef wants.
Yeah.
My youngest, yes, absolutely. Got a tremendous palate. The oldest one is like, what did you do? I'm doing the opposite. So he eats so bad. Yeah. But he wanted to go, he wanted to do something. So I was like, he goes, what do you think? I'm like, we could do this thing or we could do this other thing. And he goes, let's do that other thing. So we walk into Legal Seafood, and it's, upscale, nice vibe. And Luke's like, Pop, let's get a glass of wine. And I was like, you want me to have a glass of wine with you? I gave myself permission to have up to 4 ounces a day. Yeah. So I was like, I'll have a glass of wine with you, sure. And I was like, curious to see what would happen, because that was the first time I'd allowed myself to drink socially in 4+ years. Wow. And honestly, since then I've had drinks here and there, and it's like it used to be there would be that click that would happen. Tennessee Williams talked about it. You know, this click would happen where the lights come on. It's like warm and fuzzy.
Right.
Like none of that's there. Like I don't. Yeah. Drinking doesn't matter. The thing is there's things about drinking. I drink a lot of like non-alcoholic beers because as a chef we use our palates, and I miss using my palates, like drinking, you know, sparkling water and LaCroix only goes so far.
That's true.
You know, is it good? Yes. Did it fulfill a need? Absolutely. But the thing is like I realized, like, as I worked through all this other shit, like I said, the drinking wasn't my problem. I'm still very cautious about it.
Yeah.
You know, and my wife will make sure that I'm the same way at sometimes. We were at a wedding on Saturday, and it's like we got to a point where it's like I'm gonna have, like, somebody's going up, and I was like, have another glass of wine. She goes, that's 4. It's like they're poured like this, you know, which anybody else is about 2 inches. But I appreciate that check. I'm not really concerned about it because it doesn't. Waking up sober feels so much better. 100%. Having that clarity that I don't miss any of that other part. But I'm not going to lie. Things that I did miss, hard work, like going out for a long run and having a cold beer afterwards. Like if you run 30 miles, a cold beer feels great.
Fuck that. Like there would have to be a big bear chasing me to run 30 miles, bud.
But, you know, so anyways, and that leads into, you know, that sort of leads into like Southminster, because once you kind of work through the stuff that I've worked through, the baseline for me is like communication, comfort.
Yep.
You know, and the way that the world was burning down around me, moving into Southminster at the time. I mean, just before the pandemic hit, such a fractured society. You know, everybody's at each other's throats, and there's just so much shit going on. And it's like the one thing that I could do, even if they're rich white people, is bring some comfort to somebody at the end of the day. Now, if I could find a way to do that for poor black people and feed my family, I'm all about that. I didn't choose that, but I chose it because they pay me well. I have great benefits. My hours are there. The team is amazing. The leadership is fantastic. I mean, Salem is a tremendous leader. So I'm in a great spot to do that, and I get to mentor people. Yeah. And I work with my brain, mostly. Mostly. You know, I mean, we all deal with the implications of an endemic world, right? Where we just don't have enough labor. So, I mean, you know, we do that. But even on the worst day, it's like sometimes, like on a Saturday, like people like working on Saturdays with me because it's a very structured day, because it's my day. None of the other chefs are there. Like I have, sometimes a sous chef might be there, but for the most part, it's nobody from the executive leadership part in the kitchen. My day is very structured. They know what to expect when they get there. And there's a lot less employees and a lot less hubbub. So it's really condensed down to its like fine details. And I get to spend a lot of time during that day showing people why to do it. Right? Not what to do, but why to do it. Yeah. You know? And
I think that's missing a lot. I see that, and that's an awesome trait to bring to your team. And I can see why that would be fulfilling for you, because I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. And I notice it a lot with young leadership. They teach the what, right, and not the why.
Yeah.
And even like tracing that why down, right? Yeah. Like you know, if it's, let's say it's an omelet, right? It's like, okay, fine. So we're gonna make a French omelet. Well, the eggs can have no color. Like they're no color. This is why they don't have color, because once they have color, you know, you're caramelizing the proteins, you're changing the flavor of the omelet, you're changing the texture. Can't do that, right? An omelet's supposed to be fluffy. If you brown the proteins, now it becomes tough like a steak, right? You don't want to do that with an egg. Yeah. You know, things like that. And then you can see people getting there. Yeah. Right? It's like that mentoring thing where the person you're teaching is getting it. Yeah. Right? They're like, okay, that, like they may not fully understand it because they don't like eggs, right? They're like, oh, I'm not going to eat that shit.
But the thing is, you planted that.
Yeah, right? But now that seed's there, and they're like, okay, cool.
Shit's a virus, bro.
Yeah, it's
you know, it is. Yeah. I mean, communication, right? Language.
Or a vaccine.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Language, which if you think about it, like language is a virus, right? Yeah. Because like you put this thing out there, you start communicating with people, right? Now I'm going to say this to you, and then you're going to interpret it. Right. It's already changed. Right. It's already mutated into something different because what's going on in your head is different, right? But also it goes with like how words are put together. Things change over time. Ain't isn't a word. Now it is, right? It's because it's a virus. Yep. But the thing is you get to plant these things via that to people, these ideas, and that's power, right? And if you keep beating over their head, like Saturday I was talking about, so it's like we have hospice there as well. To me, that's the most important meal. I don't care what the fuck is going on. Everybody treats it like it's the shit end of the stick. Dude, that's like family meal in a kitchen.
Yeah.
There is no more nobler pursuit than cooking for the family in your restaurant, except for maybe cooking somebody's potential last meal.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, somebody's last meal on hospice is not sexy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It very well may be a chicken tender because that's what the fuck you want, or you responded to your caregiver going like, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? And like, hey, I want chicken tenders, right?
Right.
You don't know. But motherfucker, that chicken tender better be crispy, hot, delicious. The salt has got to be on there. Like, I'm giving it to you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give you, you're going to get
all the chicken tender.
everything I got, because goddamn, what if that's the last thing?
Yeah.
What if you're eating that and it goes out? Your light goes out. I don't want to have disappointed you at your last second, even if you don't know me.
Wow. I actually never thought about that as far as the Southminster thing. And, and with something that we talk about as chefs all the fucking time, every interviewer asks you, what's your last meal? Like it's part of like,
Yeah, you think it's going to be some grand thing.
Yeah.
No, dude, it's going to be pureed eggs.
Yeah. Or something.
Because you're going to choke on something. Like,
Right.
It's so much different, right? When you see it from that end. So for me,
I love seeing you get fired up about it too, though.
It's
like
odd, right?
that's inspiring to see you get fired up about cooking the hospice meal for people. Like that's
my and the thing is, it's frustrating as fuck because Southminster's big, right? They order breakfast. Nobody's cooking in the kitchen upstairs in the main kitchen for breakfast. It's downstairs. And some of the stuff that they want or may ask for is probably in another building attached. It's adjacent.
Yeah.
But it's out there. So you're doing a lot of fucking running. Like my steps, I run long distance, right? So my steps for the day on my thing are already set pretty fucking high.
Yeah.
And I've had them by 7:30 in the morning already like, boop, boop, goal reached. Because this one wanted coffee and they wanted a milkshake and they needed Raisin Bran, which we don't keep in our kitchens.
Right.
Because it's not a nursing home.
Right.
We're a retirement community. We do have
like a little
different
cafe and things like that.
Well, what I'm saying, like you if you go into assisted living, that's a different matter. That's more like a nursing home, right? And we have this big, beautiful building that's 4 stories tall with all these small kitchens in there, and there's a lot of room. There's a lot of running around, right? So it can be super frustrating, especially if you've got like a Saturday where you're already prepping for one meal, like for menu downstairs, it's different every day. And instead of like having Promenade, which is our more fine dining restaurant, let's say that's closed down on a Saturday for a buffet. So you got to take care of this one menu for this one day and prep for Sunday's one menu plus the Sunday buffet menu. There's a lot going on.
Right.
Throw in some catering.
Yeah.
And you got a day that's.
You're grinding it out.
Yeah.
Now.
But I don't care what the fuck is going on. Hospice gets your attention full on. And I've got this girl, Adriana, who used to be a lawyer in Columbia that went through Adam Dietrich's program.
Okay.
And came to us.
Okay.
So no professional experience whatsoever. Like this woman is amazing. She's a beast and she gets it. So it's like she's my default sous chef, even though she's not a sous chef.
Yeah.
Because she knows my program. So on Saturday, like when I get in, she's like, Chef, I've already got this. I got this. And I'm going to scramble you some eggs in case hospice orders them. Those eggs better be fucking good, Adriana.
Yeah.
And those eggs are great.
Nice.
So, and the thing is, because she gets it, that was my whole thing where she's like, Chef, this is a lot. And I'm like, but it's important. It's so important.
Yeah.
But they're eggs, but they're important.
Yeah.
Same with potatoes.
Why are they so important, though?
Because it's a simple thing, right?
Yeah.
As a chef, I'm above an egg.
Yeah.
I don't work brunch. And you know me, I'll work every fucking brunch because it's humbling.
Yeah.
It'll teach you, it'll show you up. Jamie Lynch, it'll show you up because I've seen it. Brunch will bring out the thing is it's not going to build character. It's going to expose it.
Yep.
And brunch will do that. I don't care. You could be Thomas Keller. You could be, I don't even know who the fucking chef of the moment is right now. I'm
not the chef, but I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But the thing is brunch is going to expose who you are because brunch is turn and burn. Doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. Eggs have to get done quick and out.
Yeah.
They'll expose you real quick. That's why they're important.
And they don't have a whole lot of, there's not a lot of wiggle room on an egg.
Or range. Well, actually, that's not true. There's a lot of range, but there's not in a breakfast application, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like they go from being good to shit like
fast,
instant,
yeah.
And you have to account for that in your cooking, which takes some skill and finesse and like focus. Like you can't fucking mail it in.
No, not at all.
on the egg station.
And you got to figure what a Sunday morning looks like for somebody who just spent all night partying at the Penguin feels like. And Lulu, you got to figure we did 300 covers, and I cooked all those eggs to fucking order.
Yeah.
There was no
6 over medium, 2 over hard, 3 poached, 1 scrambled, 1 with scrambled with cheese.
And it's like, we can't just do Bennies. I got to have 6 Bennies on the menu. So you got all those variations going on. And the eggs got to be poached fucking perfect, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, man, when you bang that out,
Yeah.
it's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah,
It's fulfilling.
At 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, kicking your foot up.
Two.
Two
Like everybody knows it. Like everybody knew that by 1:45, if I wasn't out of that kitchen smoking a Camel
you were
Light,
pissed.
I was gonna kill somebody. If I was still on that line at 2:30, they were bringing me a Bloody Mary. Like, Chef, sorry, we just had a 12 top. I'm like,
maybe that's what broke you. And
Yeah,
our
probably.
brunch is going till 4. It's like, fuck that.
we're at fucking Nan's.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that brunch was a shit show.
The buffet is a nightmare.
That was all right. It was a learning curve.
Yeah, well, but you have to too in that scenario. But there's something to be said about grinding out that successful brunch shift, like 400 covers, all the eggs, all the things, and it's fairly smooth. Like, you know, you have your obstacles you have to overcome or whatever, but then kicking your foot up on the table at 3 o'clock or whatever, having a coldie and saying, "Oh,
Done.
we did it."
We're done.
Yeah.
Right? As long as I don't have to work a Saturday night, man,
Yeah.
I'm good. Do not ask me to work. I don't want to fucking work a Sunday night ever. I think I
Yeah.
worked like 2 at Nan and Byron's while I was there because I'm like, I'm not doing Sunday nights.
Yeah.
I'm not. I think the one time I had to work a Sunday night was because whoever that one of those sous chefs that I had that was a little naughty outy made the kitchen staff quit. Most of them.
Oh man,
What a time to
What
be
a
alive.
time.
But I mean, you know, I think the thing is with like, right, where we're at in our age, that's always that's sort of the hard focus, right? Because it's like, what's important? How do you translate it? Because like, I don't want to go into, nor can I really like I didn't cash in and go back and finish out my degree. So I don't have a college degree back to fall on, which is like now with all these cooks, like fuck culinary school. I'll teach you how to cook. Go get a business degree. Go get your fine art degree, whatever it is that you want to fall back on in 30 years, because you're going to want to fall back on something at some point. Get that piece of paper. Like, get your business paper. I'll teach you how to cook. You want to open a restaurant?
Yeah.
Don't pay. Well, luckily Jay Woo's gone now.
Yeah.
But no offense to my friends from Jay Woo. But you know, it's like, the thing is like, if they've got to stay focused on that one part more than anything else, and that's like the communication is so important, not just with other cooks, but that thing that you want to tell somebody about yourself, right? As a cook, like, what do you like? That's the one thing that I heard that I didn't say that I wish that I had said was Dean Orr. You know, Dean is married to Amber. I'd have to show him. Anyways, Dean's been around. He helped me out at Earl's, and then he helped me out. He was at Southminster for a little while. And Dean's very competent cook, and cuts no corners, makes no bones about it. And he'll be more than happy to show you how to do it. He'd probably do a little bit more like you than me, right? But he'll show you how to do it. And if you don't want to do it, his line was always like, "I don't give a fuck. It's your shitty career, not mine."
You're right.
But he's absolutely correct,
Right.
right? It cuts it, and he's from New Jersey, so of course he's going to cut it more like that, right?
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that's probably the most accurate statement that you can tell anybody at any point of their career, right?
Yep.
It's like, what are you willing to say about yourself? Because you're like, you know, we always go, you're only as good as your last plate.
Yep.
That sounds amazing, but at the end of the day, it's the closest to truth. And it's like, is this what you want to tell people? This is who you are.
Right.
This shitty steak, these soggy ass fries. There are already mistakes that you're going to let slip past you that you didn't identify or didn't pay attention to or miss somehow. But if you're willing to let the ones go that you know about, go. It's time to go.
Well
like
said.
you're past burnt out, right?
Yeah.
You don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's well said. Nicely identified.
Yeah, because I mean, we all miss shit.
Yeah,
Like,
it happens. I mean, mistakes happen. Like, and that's the thing too, is I think in the early days of my ownership career, like the, you know, Five Church days when we were like setting the bar for ourselves, I was very aggressive about our standards, my standards, like the way things were going to be. And that was to set the tone for what we were going to do as a group moving forward. But like nowadays, like our standards are still high.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm also not at the pass every night. And, you know, and I think what you just said about what are you willing to tell people about yourself, like through your work, right?
Yeah.
What you're willing to allow to happen.
Yeah. What are you willing to lose every time you put
we're
it
gonna
out?
miss stuff, right? Like not everybody has the perspective or whatever to see all the mistakes or the mental checklist to be like, oh wait, oh that or that.
Yeah. And sometimes,
that's
food
fine.
is.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's just food at the end of the day, right? Like we're not changing the
Jamie,
world.
we make shit.
Yeah,
we
do.
make shit.
We
Like
do.
seriously,
We do.
folks, that's what we do.
It's edible, but it's edible shit.
Well, it becomes
It becomes edible.
it becomes shit.
Yeah,
Is what I'm saying. That's what we make. We make shit.
I got you. Yes, we do make.
Our end product is that.
That's true. Yeah, and but I think about what you're willing, what you know is right, what you're willing to allow is an important barometer that I think people need to think about in this industry.
Yeah, you gotta. You have to. Like, if you're not checking yourself on that aspect, like on a daily, I think
mailing it in.
Yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice. And the thing is, I don't know that that's necessarily like. I don't feel like it's specific to our industry. I feel like you could do anything,
right?
And
mail it in.
Yeah, and if
check out and just
if that's what you're willing to do, that's what you're willing to do, right? It's like I had this one bad review at Halcyon over the meatball trio, and it was on I think Yelp, or one of those, and the person's avatar was Dick Cheney, so I got dressed down in a very smart, sardonic way by Dick Cheney, and I still, like, to this day, I wish I knew who the fuck it was. And the funny thing is like, I know what the day looked like when he was in there eating, and I know almost specifically, like, what plate was his when it went out. We were jam-packed on this lunch.
Right.
Oven was running hot. We had, like, a fuck ton of orders, these meatball trios going in, and I let a couple, like, put them on the plate and send them out, and never looked at them. Now, that hearth oven was always running at, like, 850, 900 degrees.
Yeah.
So the fucking bottom of the meatballs were fucking toast, dude. I sent out burnt meatballs.
Yeah.
And that was basically his whole thing, was talking about, like, this restaurant, this, and it's Dick Cheney saying those things. So if you want somebody to burn your food, Halcyon's the place for you.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just Halcyon, it was Chef Mark and Halcyon are the place for you. And the thing is like, when I read that review, because like first I fucking laughed because it's fucking Dick Cheney, right? And everybody's like, well, fuck that guy. And I was like, no, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Because I was in charge of those fucking meatballs, and I didn't look on the bottom of it, knowing full well what was going on in that oven that particular day, with the sun shining, not too different from like it is right now. Like, that was on me, And the thing is I think if you don't have that accountability, that self-accountability, like that's where it goes.
That is a hard thing to come by these days. I don't think they're teaching that in culinary schools.
Man, I think that no, but the thing is like I don't like to, like, I get that part, but I try to find the way that they get it, right?
Yeah.
There's some things that are just going to be generationally, they're going to be different by generation.
Right.
There's nothing we can do about it. Every generation is always shitting on the one prior to it, and the one that's above it's shitting on the other one. It's what we do. It's a younger brother, younger sister syndrome, I guess, right? But like, there's a lot of wonderful things that these kids bring to the table, and they're changing the industry that I absolutely applaud. I think if they're like, there's certain things, my wife deals with them at CPCC, right? And the thing is that mostly when they ask you a question, they're not really looking for the answer. They want to know how you're going to do that for them. And it's not a slight on them, because a lot of them are our children, and that's what we taught them.
Right.
With all these things. And they'll also take these kids to task because they're like, oh, they can't memorize this. Dude, I don't have to memorize shit anymore, because the entire fucking Encyclopedia Britannica and every other book that's ever been written is right here in my hand. You know what's great? Not having to pull that shit out of my head anymore.
Right.
I don't need to remember my recipes. They're on my phone.
Right.
Or I can go look one up and go like, oh, yeah, these are your basics, and I'll just make it mine from there.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Or whatever you need. Mm-hmm. So I think like we're tool users, and we should embrace these tools as well. And I think like, don't teach my kid how to memorize stuff that he doesn't need to memorize anymore. It's like, yes, teach them critical thinking. Those parts are important.
Right.
Let's figure out.
He doesn't need to learn cursive.
No.
My son can barely. My son Max, right, who's the barista at La Belle Helene.
Sharp as a whip, by the way. I know your son. He's no slouch.
Yeah. He's a smart kid. He's a wiseacre, and but he's also a really good worker. Mm-hmm. And he has no interest in being. He has no interest in being in the kitchen.
Good man.
He worked with us in the kitchen at times, and has learned that that's not the place for him. Like working in my shadow and being the chef's kid and all that stuff. He's like, I don't fucking want that. I don't want to be a chef.
Yeah.
Why am I trying to fucking fill those shoes? Like, fuck that.
Right.
Right. And so he works in the front of the house. He's a barista. But his station is, meticulously set up. Like his mise en place is like, you would be proud. You'd walk in there and be like, I like what you're doing over
there. That's Jamie Lynch's kid right there.
I like what you're doing over there on that espresso machine, kid. And he rocks it out. And he's very meticulous and very clean and organized, and I love it. But he cannot, his handwriting is fucking atrocious, awful. Like signing his paycheck is awful. I'm sorry to call you out, Max. But he can type like, a gazillion words a minute with his eyes closed.
And that's a skill that's useful.
Right. And he can hack into your iPhone, which is apparently supposed to be like hacker proof, remotely. So
Brilliant.
I'm like, all right, well, maybe you don't need to know how to write in cursive.
Yeah, what could,
what I mean?
Who needs it anymore?
Yeah, who needs it?
That's like, I see that when I see these things on social media, we're like, oh, kids these days can't even read this. Yeah, but the funny thing is those kids had to show you how to get that phone turned on. So there's that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's embracing the things as they evolve.
Yeah.
Being open to it rather than.
But getting back to your point though on that, I mean, I think that there's things that we as chefs could definitely step our game up to make sure that we're putting that part out there, right? Because it is our job to teach them,
right?
More than anything else. And that was something that I identified. Shit, by the time we had Halcyon open, I started to see the kids come in that there was already a shift in things. So I was just like constantly going like, look, you have to be able to look 3 moves down, whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah. You
have to understand what you're doing right now, basically what the consequences are to the next person, as you work down the station or as you're building this particular plate. This is the why, but also I want you to be considering it when you're doing it. So that way you don't find yourself like in the middle of it.
Yep.
But the hardest thing for me, I think, with the young cooks when they're coming in the kitchen, even some of the ones that are closer to like 40 years old, will come in and they'll grab a menu and they'll start working without reading the whole fucking menu. And I'm like, yo, if I gave you a 1,000-piece puzzle and said lid on or lid off, which would you prefer? Because exactly, you want to know what the fuck you got.
I want to look at the picture, man.
Like, how do I know what I'm building? And I was like, same thing. And I don't care if you've made chicken salad before.
Yeah.
You know how to make our chicken salad?
Right.
So go ahead and read it all the way through. That way, if you got a question, ask it. Matter of fact, if you're doing this, and I always tell them the same, if you're making any of our recipes for the first time and you're not asking me a question, you don't have to ask Phil or Ryan. Come ask me, because I don't get pissed off about asking questions or frustrated. My job is to be there to answer them.
Right.
I'm going to be a bit suspicious.
Right.
I want you to come ask me questions, but read it all the way through and understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, and then go do it.
Right.
And even some of them that have been there long enough, that have been there for a while, I was like, do you know what you're making? They're like, well, I'm kind of making this. You know what it's supposed to look like? No, let's go look at it.
Context is key.
Let's go take a look.
Yep.
Come on, man. We'll go walk in the walk-in cooler.
Yeah.
Get away from your hot
some
station.
of this in there. Yeah, it's cool in there.
We'll take a break. This is what we're making.
Yeah.
So this is why you're going to do it.
Right.
And I think, to circle back into that whole thing, I think, that's really sort of like at this point in my career, it's like, I've got all this experience and all this time, a lot of failures and some great successes and, some in-between shit that hopefully I could put out there and make somebody else a better person, a better cook. Absolutely. I'd love to do that. But if I can make you a better person, that's even better.
Right.
Because you're going to go do something else somewhere, like some way,
Right, yeah.
Not everybody's going to stay in the kitchen. But if I can make you a better person, and if I can teach you through the language that I know, that's the best way. And that's how I communicate is through food. So.
And even if they do stay in the kitchen and you make them a better person, you're only bettering the industry as a whole down the road.
Hopefully.
So it's not the same shitstorm that we came up in.
Exactly.
It'd be a little more, humble and.
I mean, you got to figure out, right? You got to, like, at some point you have to be faced with, like, what is my legacy going to be? I mean, let's face it. Chances of people remembering me, low. People a chance of remembering you, a little bit higher, but still low, right?
But it's still low.
It is.
Yeah.
So the thing is like,
what else is there?
Yeah, and I'm like, that's the hard. Like, I think most people get stuck on that whole, like, themselves. How far does it carry? Like, when my mother died, that should have like fucking wrecked me the way that when my sister died, because I didn't have an opportunity to make amends or any peace with her. There was radio silence. She told me she had cancer, and then didn't answer any phone calls or texts for 6 months. And I'm like trying to figure out all this other shit in my head. And she's doing this one. But the funny thing about it is like, the last time I was in New York, I didn't see her, and I haven't seen her because she wouldn't come out. She was sick. So like I'm not coming out. I got shingles. I'm going to get the kids sick. So I hadn't really seen my mother in, I don't know, 10 years, let's say. Mm-hmm. My mother lived in my head for 10 years before she died. Mm-hmm. Still lives there. Mm-hmm. Right? Same thing with what I'm going to teach these kids. They're not going to remember it, but they're going to teach it to somebody else. And like my shit still lives somehow, some way. Mm-hmm. Somebody like that like my kids are probably going to be working in the kitchen someplace, and somebody's going to tell them why you never have potatoes oxidized, why it's important to have them fucking pristine and white. And they're going to say, because any idiot can make a fucking steak and grill it perfectly, but they're going to treat the potato like it's fucking like second fiddle. Mm-hmm. Potato's the star of the show, yes, right? Not because it is, but because if you don't treat it like that, you're not treating anything else the same way.
True that.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm going to end it.
Well said, sir. Well, listen, man, thanks for coming out and rambling with me for an hour and over. It's been awesome to see you.
2 hours? That's about my usual time for these things.
Yeah.
Then I'm waiting for Pete to peek in out of nowhere and just go tapping on the tab. Let's wrap it up.
But man, it was really good talking to you, and we rambled around a bit, but like super insightful, and it was good to catch up with you and see like what's going on in your noodle right now and what you're focused on. Dude, keep running, bro.
That's all I'm focused on, to be honest with you.
Just keep running, keep breathing. So what are you thinking about when you're running, real quick?
So like usually
do you have to like keep yourself like in check, or are you just kind of like?
It depends. Like if I'm road running, like this morning, I'm able to just kind of like, there's nothing to worry about really, right? But if you're running on a trail, rocks, shit, you trip.
You're paying attention.
But it's really weird because it's almost like when you're like, if you've done seated meditation, like Japanese style, so your eyes are open. You're not like, or any of this other stuff. You're just present in the moment. It's a lot of that.
Yeah.
So when you're running 50 miles or more, 12 hours or longer, you're in your head a lot, right? Which for chefs, we're in our head a lot. But you know what's nice? When you're in your head, it's like, remember being in the kitchen before everybody gets there?
Yeah, I love
That's
it.
what running's like.
Yeah.
Because you're in your head.
Yeah. You're organizing your thoughts. You're just kind of letting them come through. You're
whatever.
Like, hey, thought. Bye.
Well, it's
breathing.
It's really, yeah. I mean,
to do that.
And I said that little thing about like skateboarding, did all these things that brought me to this thing. Like when I ran before all my other shit, and I was a runner, and I stopped doing it because of reasons. And when I finally got back to it as a complete person again, all those things that made me at the time brought me to where I needed to be. So now when I'm running, like, I can really meditate while I'm running. Like shit just comes and shit just goes.
Yep.
I work through grief. I work through trauma, anger, all these things. Some days it's amazing and you just keep running. You're like, oh my God, this is like, you just settle into it and you just go.
Yeah.
Right? Like banging out a perfect night. Some days it's a fucking struggle and you'll never know which one it's going to be. Like it was cool as hell today for the first time in a while, like to go out, no humidity, felt great. You could just be in shorts and a tank top and run. First 5 miles, I'm just trucking along. Turned around, started heading back to the house. I don't know why, but the second 5 miles, fucking struggle bus, bro.
Yeah.
For no reason. And it's like, I don't know what I was thinking about at the particular moment. But it's like your shoulders get pulled up and everything else like that. So, I mean, you're spending a lot of time sort of in and out of spaces. Like, you go like, oh my God, am I doing this? You're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. And you're running. I'm like, am I breathing right? I'm like, yeah. And all of a sudden you're like, look at that flower over there. And then like, you're like, oh, and like that'll trigger something else.
Right.
And it goes. But I always say like, I didn't like running with music, but I like running with music now because I find having some
like
low
a cadence or something.
Dude, it's just low level. No, dude, like I listen to like Iron and Wine and Wilco. Like it's atmospheric.
Yeah,
it's a soundtrack basically. I got a soundtrack going on. Because it's perfect for a guy that's trying to kill his ego to be in his own movie. That's what's going on.
I can't wait for the release of this movie, bro.
You don't want to see what's in there.
Oh man!
You guys just had like whatever they edited this down to, but there's 2 hours of like the shyest guy in the room rambling on forever.
Well, thanks for doing it, man. It was good catching up.
It was always a pleasure seeing you, brother.
Dude, keep good.